Yeah, I'll add it up afterwards.
Ooh, wee.
I'll start with an intro, and then we'll go into talking about some of the reports. All right, welcome to the Dixon Police Podcast. I'm Officer Ryan West, usually with Matt Coffey, but he's off on vacation, and we're on different shifts now, so making the whole podcast thing a lot more difficult. But we're going to try it this night here with, I got Ofc Lally and Steve Garrison with me.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey, guys. All right, so today we were going to talk about some reports. That sounds super not exciting, and they aren't. But
Best part of the job.
right? So this actually came up in conversation. We were talking to, were you? No, of course you weren't. You were gone all the month.
When?
You wouldn't know.
I
You
need
weren't
time.
here.
I need time off. This place is a prison.
You have too much time
Were
off.
you here when Doug was talking about the old cards?
Which cards?
Yeah, I want to punch you.
Good thing there's all a table in front of
No,
us.
they had a call from like when the shot a guy.
Correct.
Crest.
Or the DUI card that was saw
Saw
vehicle,
drunk, arrested same.
arrested same. Yeah.
Did you say carrested?
Arrested.
One of the deputy chiefs a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about some of the old reports back because they still have some of the like leftover ones from, I'm gonna guess, late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
Written in stone still.
Yeah, right. But he's talking about how it was like one sentence reports. Like we had a DUI guy. It was like saw drunk, arrested same. Like 4 words for a DUI report.
That's an easy DUI.
Right. I mean, because now that's like one of our most complex reports we do is DUI report because they just an absurd amount of detail, and now there's like standardized field sobriety testing that we have to go through and everything else because like they didn't have that back then.
Very strict process.
Yes. Yeah. So kind of funny. We have like certain phrases within like society that carry over. Like we say, I'm going to dial a number, right? No one has a rotary phone anymore. They're not dialing, or you hang up the call.
Ending the call.
Right. Well, yeah. Killing's young, so he ends the call. We hang up a call still.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like a picture.
Yeah. But so in police world, for where we're at, we always still say to our dispatchers, hey, can you start a card for whatever, a public complaint for something? And that carries over from when they actually had physical cards that they would actually, on a typewriter, type notes into the card, as they called it. So now it's all digital, right? So we just say, hey, can you do this? And it pops up on our computer screen. But that the terminology, the legacy terminology is still carried over from that.
Yeah, we still create cards.
It's funny everyone does the movement too. Create a card.
Yeah.
With their fingers.
Yes. I wonder if it was, I haven't seen them. Were they actually like index cards?
Something very similar
Or like
to, yeah.
a 3x5 or something like that?
Correct. From my understanding.
Okay.
I'm not that old yet.
So,
I wasn't even a thought.
yeah. So one of the calls that Doug was talking about, our deputy chief, was they had a shooting. We were talking about different shootings throughout the years. He'd seen different reports. And that one was prior to Tennessee versus Garner, which we'll get to in a second. But then this guy was a burglary down on like it's either West First Street or some by a river. And the guy was running, and back then you could just shoot at people, I guess.
Wild West.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I ended up shot this guy and was killed. And it's like saw the suspect and shot him, and he was dead right there. Like that's the entirety of the report, which is insane.
All right, boys, we're done here.
Yeah, right. Can we just talk for a minute how insane that would be if our job was still like that? We're like, oh, this person was burglarizing this thing, or he got into this person's car and then he ran, and we were just allowed to shoot at them.
It would be pretty crazy. I agree.
Well said, Harrison. I'm sorry.
Arrested same.
Cut.
Yep, that'd be crazy.
That would be a crazy life.
Yeah, that'd be insane.
Yeah. We'll do a test here. Killing, you know what Tennessee versus Garner is?
I do.
Without looking at the sheet, you cheater? It's a real test.
Yeah.
You know what this one was?
Yeah, the fleeing suspect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't shoot the fleeing felon.
Unless.
They're a danger to society.
Right, yeah. So Tennessee versus Garner came out in 1985, right? This is the state of Tennessee had a law saying that you could shoot a fleeing person basically to affect any arrest, which is crazy. So the thing that came out of that is under the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, a police officer may use deadly force to prevent the escape of a fleeing suspect only if they have in good faith belief that the suspect poses a significant threat of death or serious physical injury to officers or others, right? So, yeah, like Killian said, unless they're going to kill somebody else or hurt somebody else, or something really egregious, that's about the only time we'd be authorized to use deadly force. So not someone pulling on someone's car door handles in the middle of the night. We're not going to just come out guns blazing.
Yeah, I wouldn't even want to be out walking if that was the case.
So when an actual shooting happens now, like, so your CSI, when you think of like TV stuff like that, they all come in, the crime scene from state police usually come in, and they got to do all sorts of stuff, like picture everything. They got to figure out like the bullet trajectory. Even if there's like one guy who shot one bullet, they still have to analyze where were the shell fragments and the shell that came out of the pistol, and then the actual pistol itself to verify that that was the one that shot, and take all the gunpowder residue off clothes and everything else. It's very scientific.
The evidence log is longer than the old reports.
Oh, significantly longer.
The dog at large reports longer than the old reports.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. So, yeah. So, and that's obviously, like, I don't say worst case scenario, but officer involved shooting, that's a significantly lengthy report. But even some of the other reports we do, like some of the stuff we can close out and we call it, on the card, right? We add comments to it. Dispatcher's going to just say, okay, yeah, hey, we had a vehicle doing this thing that we checked the area, unable to locate, or we talked to the owner of the vehicle, such and such happened, and that's it. And those don't require us to actually come back to the station and type out a longer report.
It's more like a footnote comment.
Yep, basically, yeah,
thing.
yeah. And so it's always kind of trying to find that line of like, what is worthy of an actual report, and then what is like good enough to just do comments in the card.
Or things that should be comments in the card that become reports.
Right. So we've gone through several different report systems throughout the years. I was talking with one of the older guys too. He said that when they would arrest somebody, this is probably back 25, 30 years ago, they would have to like talk into like a dictaphone, kind of like where this microphone, and then one of the office ladies would like annotate.
Translate it to
Yeah,
a type report.
What's the
Transcribe.
Thank you. Transcribe, yes. And it was right there on the tip of my brain. Hey, they transcribe it to an actual paper, and I guess it was all like one giant run-on paragraph, all in like caps lock kind of thing. So, yeah.
A mess and difficult to read.
Yeah.
It's like how I type.
Yeah, just shouting.
All caps.
It's an angry officer. You guys both came from different agencies. When you guys were doing reports there, you were Rock Falls and you were a county guy. Did you guys do reports in the first person or third person?
So I did them in third person.
You did?
Correct.
Even at county?
County, I did third person.
Really? Okay. What did you guys do in Rock Falls?
So I believe, and I could be mistaken, it's been a long time, I believe we did them in first person.
Okay.
And then when I transferred here,
Everything
it
was
was
third person.
third person.
Yeah. Did that take a while to get used to?
I actually liked it a lot better.
Yeah.
It's just easier to type in that flow.
Yeah.
It was third person here?
It
Yeah.
was, yes.
Oh.
This is before your time.
I do first person.
And then we went to first
Oh,
person
okay.
here.
I thought I was the only one.
You're doing it,
Look, is someone
doing it
gonna tell
wrong.
me?
Who reads those reports?
Yeah.
It's not us, right?
Yeah. So our old system, old now because we have a new one. Everything was typed in the third person. So I would say, I wouldn't even start that. I would just start, at this date at this time, Officer West was patrolling this thing. I would never use the word I with it. And then you'd have one person who would write pretty much the entire report for what happened. And there was no like add-ins from another person saying this. You basically all kind of compile your thoughts together. Like Steve would come talk to me like, oh yeah, I talked to this guy. He said this. Well, I'd still be typing the report, and that was it. And so I would say, Officer West did this, and Officer Garrison did that. Which, honestly, when you go back through and read it, it reads really well. It reads like a book.
Makes way more sense.
Yeah. The new system we got, it's new to us. I'm sure other people have used it before too, other agencies. It allows for, I'll say first person. So, I, Officer West, did this thing at this date, this time. I saw this. I talked to this person. And then now what we have is supplemental parts, right? So I type only what I did, and then Steve would get in. He would type only what he did in the report, and everything's like trackable, right? So you can see any changes you made to it, that kind of thing. So it does make sense in that aspect. I still actually prefer reading the third person point of view I think it's just easier to read.
Same. I think, not that it's an issue, but now you sometimes get 6 reports for one report.
Yes.
And they all say the same thing.
Same
Yeah,
thing.
it's,
Or if you only read mine, it says, I arrived on scene and secured him in handcuffs. And you have to read yours to figure out why.
right, correct.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah, you see in there like, hey, see this person's supplement for further detail or something like that. Yeah, a lot more information we have now to compile everything. Everything's recorded now, right? We have body cameras, so you would think we could have like a
See body cam.
body cam for
My
further.
whole report.
I can see why we still need to type it though, because if you have, say you're at a house talking with a guy for 2 or 3 hours because
Right.
they got something going on, and the bulk of the report happens in the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes of that, and you just got 3 hours of basically nothing in the middle. I can see why you wouldn't
this
need
time,
to, yeah, see this time period for this time. Oh, man, imagine scrubbing through all that and trying to narrow that down.
Not a chance.
Yeah. So body cams are good and bad for that
That particular aspect. yeah.
particular aspect. Yeah.
Or when you leave it on for like
Yes.
an hour and then you go to a call
That's
and then you're looking through the video and you're like, where's all the stuff at? And it's the last 5 minutes.
Yeah. And your file size is like 6 terabytes.
Yeah.
And it's like on fire.
Yeah.
It's overheating.
Yeah. These things go through batteries pretty quick. Surprisingly. Especially in the sunlight during the
Yeah.
day.
For 2DFS, I had to switch batteries.
Yeah.
It feels inconsistent to me. It's like sometimes it lasts a whole shift. Sometimes I got to change it twice. Even if it's not on a lot.
Yeah. Right before we got on, we were actually reading a DOI report, and you had talked about how yours is pretty straight and to the point. You know, what's the old TV show? Just the facts, ma'am.
Yeah.
Right. So there's no, I don't call it fluff, but some people put a lot of detail in the
Left
reports.
shoes untied.
Like they like to
Or
say,
eye
trim the
twitch.
fat.
Yeah. And it's not to say that one's right and one's wrong, right? In
Right.
certain instances, like the absurdly detailed reports, that's very necessary. And I've actually found sometimes that as I'm like typing out like a really big report, like a big arrest, where I get a lot of information, once I finally get stuff typed out, like timelines start to click into place, and I'm like start to realize, oh hey, these things are actually connected, and I didn't see that before. Because it's just so much information overload. Once you
Right.
start to actually put it down on the paper, that sometimes can help. But yeah, there's a couple of people on here I was giving a hard time on here being the department, where I'd be walking by like, oh, what chapter of your report you on?
Part 2.
Part 2, yeah.
This is my trilogy.
Chapter 6, the walk and turn.
Book 7.
But yeah, and part of the reason why is, we're taught in the police academy, if it didn't happen, it's not in a report, it didn't happen. And part of the reason they say that is because you go to court sometimes years later,
Right.
months later.
5 years.
But
in
yeah,
my case.
you're still going to court for once 5 years old, right?
Correct.
So how good is your report from 5 years ago?
Oh, that was when I first started. It's awful.
So it's awful. Yeah.
So did it happen?
I'm not even sure at this point.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so, and it's a good reference back. So obviously the person who writes a ton of detail, they're going to have a lot more to reference, right? And again, it's that, is the juice worth the squeeze kind of thing? Like, is this going to go to court? Maybe. Is this something where I need to know the, what phase the moon was in and everything else
This
for it?
deep blue sky
Right.
as the sun set.
Yeah. So makes for entertaining reads sometimes. So when we talked about this, what do you see as the next logical step for report systems? We were talking about this separate tonight. We have like AI generated, like
Just type in the basics and let them
type
go.
in the basics, let it go. You do that, ChatGPT.
Let it watch our video.
And
and
they
then
see my
type the
name
report
spelled
based off
different
that?
Yeah.
throughout the report.
With an E?
You think you like transcribe the stuff? You said somewhere's doing that already, isn't it?
Yeah. There's some body cameras that can do that.
You can transcribe it.
I think it's just a basic, and then you type in names.
I wonder how that'd work though if like someone like isn't very good at English, or like they're talking in cursive because they're drunk. It's like just slurring it and like you
And
got
it
to.
probably deciphers that better than I would.
Yeah, that's
No,
true.
true.
Yeah, but like you go back through and read it, and you're like, whoa, what were they trying to say?
Yeah.
Because I mean, they got like the AI reading for like the closed captions on TV, and sometimes you can see that where they come up with a word, and you're like, that's not it at all.
You're at the doctor's office reading the television show, and
reading
you're
television.
like, what are they talking about?
You're
so
hoping
lost.
it's wrong.
Because all the words are wrong.
It's like you're watching two different movies.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Haven't seen this variant.
Steve, you like to listen to, I call it books on tape. I was corrected earlier by Killian because he thought books actually were on tape.
He doesn't
at one
know what
point.
Like
tapes
you guys
are.
were taping them on something.
Yeah. So, what did you call them? Audiobook?
Yeah,
Okay, I guess.
that's what everyone else calls them.
Okay. Oh, the hip kids.
The hip kids.
Yeah. So I think an audiobook version of our reports is probably like the next logical step, where we like hire a professional guy to read through our reports. So Steve, you're a big audiobook guy, right?
Yes.
You're currently listening to several like while you drive around at night, right? Because there's, 3 a.m. There's not a lot going on.
Correct.
So it's kind of a twofold thing. It gets us out. We're in the squad car, we're out driving around, and you get the enjoyment of listening to something.
And it helps you want to stay there.
Yes. Yep. The books that you listen to, does the guy have like different voices for different characters?
A lot of different voices for every character.
Yeah.
And the difficulty is if the book is part of a series, it's not always the same narrator.
Oh, that could be tough.
So you're listening to it and you're like, wait, who is this guy?
I'm actually listening to a book right now. It's a sci-fi book, and this guy's got all sorts of different like voices for different people, and the guy's incredible because I actually thought it was like multiple people doing the narrating for this book or the reading for it, because he does guys and females, but he's also doing like people with like a British accent, a guy with like a Spanish accent, like Spain Spanish, and it's been pretty entertaining. He does a really good job. Like I couldn't fake half of these accents for as long as this guy's able to keep it up. A while back I had posted something on our Facebook page or Twitter or something about like the radio in my squad car went out, not the police radio, but like the music radio. And somebody commented on there like, "You guys are actually allowed to listen to music?" It's like, man,
Dead silence all the time. You're
Silence
not doing
my
your
thoughts.
job.
you know how terrible that'd be?
That would be horrible.
Thoughts.
Just
for 12
with your
hours.
thoughts, you're oh man, you get like a Tuesday night in the middle of like February when there's just like nothing going on, and yeah,
You
just your
start thinking about that embarrassing moment you had in 5th grade, just over and over again. That's all you can think about.
right. Do you want to elaborate on that?
I plead the 5th.
Plead the fifth. Yeah. Yeah. So I prepared. I think this is a spoof, chapter 1 from our next DUI police report, and I've got sections for us to read. So I'll be the narrator for this. And if Steve, are you going to be you're going to be our drunk guy?
I'm going to be really drunk during the story.
Perfect.
Just during the story, though.
Perfect. Yeah. And Keelan, you'll be the first person point of view.
Yeah, I'm the guy.
So we're going to give this a shot here. So for sake of ease, we'll just keep everyone here with our normal Midwest lack of accent.
That's probably for the better.
Proud for the better.
You guys are afraid of my drunk voice.
You can be as drunk as you want on this. There's like 3 lines for you.
I'll be too drunk to remember.
It just mumbles.
All right, you ready for this? All right, chapter 1. It was a brisk night as I patrolled my marked squad car. At approximately 9:45 p.m., I watched the car ahead of mine drift into oncoming traffic lane before returning to the correct lane. I thought to myself,
Man, this guy must have had a heck of a night.
I initiated a traffic stop by activating my overhead emergency lights. As I walked forward to speak to the driver, I tried to ignore the wind. It was a cool breeze that would turn fingers and ears numb in a short time. It would also potentially foul up the microphone on my body camera. I would have to be mindful of how I stood so as not to catch all the wind noise. As I made it to the door, the driver had already rolled his window down. The smell of vomit hit me immediately. The driver looked up to me with glassy and watery eyes. He appeared to be in his late 20s and wore a now vomit-covered black shirt. The man was, by all appearances, intoxicated. It would be up to me to verify that this was the case and not a medical emergency. I quickly decided on the approach I would take with him and said,
Good evening. Hey, I saw you were swerving on the road back there, and I wanted to make sure you weren't having some kind of medical emergency.
The man stared at me as if he didn't understand what I was saying. Then, as if words finally reached his ears for the first time, he responded in a sluggish and slurred manner.
It's all right. I'm good.
That's terrible.
I'm drunk. What do you expect?
I wanted to be sure this was the truth.
Okay, I see you got sick in there. Is there something you ate or drank not sitting well with you?
He gave the same blank stare as before, saying again,
I'm good.
I nodded as I shifted my weight. I'd first start with some pre-exit questions before getting him out of the vehicle for the remainder of the standardized field sobriety testing, if it warranted it.
I just want to make sure you're safe to drive. I'm going to ask you some very basic questions. Okay?
The man simply nodded, his eyes going in and out of focus on me.
Can you tell me what the 5th letter of the alphabet is? You can count on your fingers, toes, whatever you need to.
The man brought up his hand, started to mutter to himself.
A, B, C.
As he took them off his fingers, looking at me again after a long pause, he replied,
G.
At this point, I knew that I would need to get him out of the vehicle.
Sir, can I have you step out to do a few more tests?
End of chapter 1. I think if they played these in court for like the jury with all like the extra color in there, you know, like the wind and everything else, they really make them feel like it's there.
The suspense was killing me. I want to know what's next.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna put in some sound effects behind there.
I saw the jazz music plays there listed at the beginning.
Yeah, so
Was my drunk voice not good enough for you guys?
it doesn't really sound like you when. No, about the jazz music. So my kids and I, we went, or my whole family, not just my kids and I, but we were on vacation this summer. We did a long car drive, and we were listening to Harry Bosch, Detective Harry Bosch series from Michael Connelly. They made an Amazon series on him based off these books, and for whatever reason, it's like that stereotypical cop thing where he's out doing whatever, and they got like the jazz music playing in the background.
You can see his silhouette as he walks.
Yeah. So it's super entertaining, but that's kind of how I took the basis for writing this, because it was like all this extra detail, but it really makes you feel like you're there. So I think this coupled with a body camera, it's like overplaying everything, I think it really could sell it.
Yeah.
Good title screen.
Yeah.
Roll credits.
Yeah. Let's move on to obscure laws. Steve, you failed and didn't come up with one.
I was too busy. I was hardworking.
He was hardworking. Killian, you actually came up with one that
I did.
I didn't know was a thing. It actually had me laughing earlier.
I knew right away. So, in the Illinois Vehicle Code, it states that a person operating a bicycle shall keep at least one hand on the handlebars at all times.
Do you think you're ever going to stop somebody for this?
No.
I have to go find somebody riding a bicycle.
Yeah, right? It's just all those cool kids that always shows off. It's like, you're just breaking the law right in front of us.
Unbelievable.
How young of an age do you think we should stop somebody for that? Like if it's a guy
I think
like
the law has to be equal across all ages.
a 7-year-old. Look what I can do.
That's really impressive, but you're under arrest.
Here's your written warning.
That's,
Contact the parents. Could you imagine that phone call?
Yeah.
Hey, I have your son here. He was
Showing
both
off.
hands off the
Can you
handlebars.
believe it?
I wonder if that's more geared towards. I mean, it's probably towards like people weaving in and out of traffic. Because if you're on, obviously it's got to be like public road. If you're on private property, but no one cares.
Or you see the people riding their bikes back from the store and they have just 30 bags on both arms.
That's pretty impressive, actually. Maybe you'd stop and give them a hand.
Yeah, you should help them.
Just give them a ride at that point.
Maybe you can put your hand on the handlebar for them.
Just right next to them.
Did you? I don't think you saw. Steve, you're on vacation. Carlos had a guy stopped, or he was at a car accident, motorist assist something, and some guy drove past. He was on a bike, and he was holding onto a bike next to him, and the bike like fell in half. Like he hit a pothole, and the bike like broke in half, and the guy went where were his handlebars.
Oh, that's not funny, actually.
I mean, he was fine.
I take the laugh back.
Did you hear where that bike came from? He was picking it up for his friend that fell off the bike earlier.
Oh.
Earlier, yeah, that we had just dealt with him, and he crashed it. Like throttle got stuck.
Where's our
on it.
narration for this story?
Right?
That's the story
sun
we
was
should have
shining.
written. Yeah,
It was a brisk 75.
yeah. It was actually really warm out that day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
that
was
guy.
a cursed bike. I'd stay away from that
That
bike.
guy ate it on gravel. Yeah, he hit hard. All right, well, Steve, since you didn't come up with anyone, I guess I'll move on to any memorable calls.
Did you look up an obscure law?
No, I didn't. I was actually leaving it up to
Oh,
you
so
too.
is this all my fault?
This is
I'm
it.
the only one that had homework?
Yeah,
Wow.
but you're the only one that completed the homework.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I came up with the chapter 1 of our DUI.
I'm going to put that on my eval.
I like it.
You did good.
Thanks.
Gold star.
Gold star. So you, Steve, were saying that you came up with a good memorable call. Is this recent or is this?
It's a
back?
few years old now,
Okay.
but I never forget it. And as cops, all our friends and family, they always ask us for the good stories.
Is this
But
one of those?
to us, the good stories aren't usually, fits of glory and honor. It's something you just can't forget because it's just absolutely ridiculous. And this is a story I always tell people.
Is this where you missed the kid sitting in the car on fire?
I did find the car, though.
Yeah,
I mean, after it was on fire,
was on fire?
I could have found it.
I was on the property probably when it got started. It was a long walk around the building, though.
what's a long walk?
Trained observer.
I was training a trained observer.
Okay.
Yeah, he was too.
You wanted him to find it.
And I did observe the flames. They were over the building, and I'm like, wow, that's very...
Oh, we better get the fire department here.
That glow is really strong. I wonder what that is. Oh,
Sorry.
it's a car on fire, just so you know. Stay calm.
All right, sorry to interrupt you. What was your actual call?
Okay, so I received a call one sunny morning, 85 degree. No, I'll skip the narration. So it's a pretty simple call. Person A called in the police department because they were upset with their neighbor. It's very common.
Okay.
Until I found out what they were upset about. So person A's neighbor had taken his garbage can out to the roadway.
Mm-hmm.
And he put his garbage can at the edge of the property line in the roadway, but where their property line would be. But it was like really close to the property line in the roadway. And person A was not happy with this because he puts his garbage can on the roadway right next to the property line, and he wasn't going to have that. So person A went and took his neighbor's garbage can, and then he put it up in his neighbor's driveway up against his garage because that was his solution to the problem. So to him, the problem was solved.
Right.
So I'm talking with him. I'm like, okay, that does seem kind of rude. I don't know how necessarily illegal it is, but I'll talk to your neighbor. I'll figure it out. And so I called the neighbor, and he's like, oh, he says, yeah, I did that because my neighbor did that to me. And I'm like, what? He's like, he took my garbage can and he brought it up to my driveway and put it next to my garage. So I went down and took his. The caller failed to tell me that he had first taken his neighbor's garbage can up to his garage, and his neighbor was just doing it to get back at him. And so I never forget that call because it's just so petty.
So petty. That's pretty
We had
typical.
full-grown adults. I believe one was like 65, the other was like in his late 50s.
Unreal.
And the most polite and respectful way I had to tell them both is not act like children.
Yeah.
Most people don't believe the story because they think that everything we do is just crime and violence. But that's really most of our calls, really.
Yeah. It's a significant portion of them.
So that's the story that I share everybody. And it makes me laugh all the time.
Killian, you got a memorable call then?
Yeah, I've got one. So like Garrison said, most of our stories aren't like, these
Exciting.
great stories to tell family. Mine's kind of embarrassing, actually.
Yeah.
So one day I'm driving, as I do, and some girl passes me, texting on her phone, doesn't even see me. So conduct a traffic stop. I give her a citation for texting because, she didn't even notice the cops she passed.
Mm-hmm.
Go to my car, and I will say most of the new cars have key fobs. This one did not, so I locked my keys in the car. All that being said, I couldn't get into the car. So there I am on the side of Palmyra by Veterans Memorial Park, lights on, so everyone's looking at me. I can't get into my vehicle. Well, this poor girl who received the citation pulled into the parking lot, direct view of me, just started throwing a fit inside of her car. So I was stuck there, trapped on the road, and I had nothing to do but hide on the side of my car that was facing her. So it was just a terrible overall experience.
How long was it before someone came with keys?
It was a good 8 minutes, but in my mind it was 3
A lot
hours.
longer.
Yeah.
She's just staring at you.
Yeah. I was pretending like I was investigating stuff.
The side of the squad car is very interesting right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a bad day.
Nice.
Trying to call someone on my watch. I didn't want to say it on the radio. It
Yeah, I bet. Was your phone inside the car?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
was a bad day.
What if actually Deputy Chief Richards, he locked himself out of a car on a traffic stop once, and it started raining.
Oh, at least that didn't happen.
Yeah, I think he said he was only like 3 or 4 blocks away from the PD, so
Just walk back
I think he
real
just
quick.
walked back. Yeah. So my recent call that I had, so we had an intern with us for several weeks. We had this lady's house that she locks herself out of all the time, elderly lady, and this time she did it to the point where like none of the keys we had worked. We couldn't get
man.
anything, and I ended up using. We got this big. It's called a Halligan tool. It's a big pry bar looking thing that the firemen use also to like break doors down, that kind of stuff.
Cool stuff.
I ended up getting it underneath one of her windows, and we like pried it up a little bit, but like the windows were like painted shut. It's like little sliding windows, and we're just sweating bullets because it's just like 1,000 degrees inside this lady's front porch. and I got the window up probably like, I don't know, maybe 8 inches, 10 inches at most. And I looked over the intern, and he's wearing this, like, he's a skinny kid. There's like nothing to him. I was like, oh, perfect. I was like, I need you. I need your help right now. He's like, he got like just like excited face, like, oh yeah, I can do it.
Can
You
do
did perfect,
something.
man, because I don't have to take all this stuff off. So he took this little body armor off that he was wearing, and we just chucked him through the window, and he like ran around and unlocked the door for us. But yeah, thank God we had a little skinny kid with us that
Gotta
day.
utilize what you had.
We get some crazy calls for like police service. Like they call us and I'm like, I don't know how this is like a police matter.
Yeah.
What's the craziest 911 call you've ever had? Like craziest, not like actual emergency. Like
Oh.
somebody called 911. You're like, I can't believe someone called 911 for that.
Man, that's something I'd have to think about, you know, because
Yeah, that's fair. I had one prepared. I had a
Oh.
lady call once because her order at a fast food restaurant in town was wrong. So she called 911.
That'll do it.
I was like, what are you expecting me to do? She's like, well, it's wrong. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, well, here's the
Corporate number.
corporate number. I said, call them, I guess.
man, now I really have to start writing some of this stuff down because
Yeah.
not even the exciting ones. I mean, the exciting ones are cool, but like some of these small ones that you just like have to literally face palm.
Yeah.
You know, like why would you call the police? You know?
I
Yeah.
get it. Call us. We'll help. But 911 is for
Yeah, it's just
emergencies.
yeah.
important
Is
to
this the
remember.
police department? Why can't McDonald's open at 3:30 in the morning?
Right.
Not 5.
Believe me,
get
we've been
called-
asking them too.
Yeah, I want to. Yeah, let's get. What about the McDonald's opening times?
Yeah.
We should be focusing on that.
We'll call Nancy and Chuck and ask them. Kelly, actually, you just had a pretty random police call.
Yeah, this
That's
was a good
really
one.
not. There's no crime related.
This poor elderly woman had her alarm system going off.
It was loud too.
It was very loud. I couldn't hear anything for a while. I couldn't help her either. I tried everything. I shut off all the fuses, pulled open some boxes.
Yes, you came up with a. Dispatchers were laughing at you, calling you MacGyver. What was your solution for it?
I shoved a towel in some Tupperware, used some packing tape, and taped it up against the wall.
Just to
over the
muffle
alarm.
it.
Yeah. She was very thankful. She told me she might be able to get some sleep tonight.
Man, that was loud too. Because
was
I heard
very
you
loud.
key up on the radio. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I've had 911, and you guys have probably got them too. But 911 calls because there's a deer standing in their backyard.
They're all over the place in northeastern side of town.
That's where they stand is in the grass.
We got 2 of those calls last year. I don't know if it was the same person, but it was the same shift saying there's a deer near the road,
Alive?
alive.
It's just standing
They
there.
thought I was going to...
So I actually
Stir it up.
live
Get back.
where you're saying,
back.
and the deer actually they
Yeah.
come in my yard to try and eat off the bushes. So I'm gonna start calling 911.
Thanks. Well, you know what? That
There are
works.
deer everywhere.
You and I are on the same shift, so as long as you do it when we're not working. We'll have to do that. We'll have to make an episode of 911 calls that are just
Just start keeping track of them. Just
yeah. Well, I have to figure out a way to do it without like offending people or like embarrassing people.
right.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm embarrassed for them, so maybe we shouldn't do any. It's like
Yeah.
watching the episode of Scott's Tots
Yeah.
from The Office.
Yeah.
There's a surprising amount of people where, like, we'll get a 911 call and I'll show up and I'll be like, this number right here is the non-emergency number. This is what you need to call on. And they're like, oh, well, I didn't know you guys had another number other than 911.
Yeah.
There is that.
We did have a 911 call from Chipotle when they first opened. Because obviously there were like 300 people there.
Yeah.
And the person came to pick up their digital order or whatever you call it, or pickup.
Yeah.
But they were told that it was going to be like 2 hours because there were so many people when it first opened. But they came there immediately and they were in the drive-thru and they refused to drive away from the. They're like, your order won't be ready for about an hour and a half, sir.
And they just stayed in the drive.
They just wanted to stay right there in the drive-thru.
Speaking of giving people numbers, you ever just feel so satisfied when someone calls us to get a number and you just Google it? They're like, oh, thank you. You're welcome.
Sir, what is the number to McDonald's? 1 second. Let me ask. Check the database.
Yeah. Calculating.
Secretpolicegoogle.com.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a fair amount of Googling that goes on.
To be fair, it is usually the elderly population, but
Be careful.
Yeah.
Abraham Lincoln once said, "Don't believe everything you see on the internet."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's what I always warn them. I'm like, now listen, I just Googled it, so if it's wrong,
Yeah.
don't come after me. And then I give them Garrison's name instead of mine.
I was working with Matt Coffee a while back, and then some lady was called. She said, "Well, I can't figure out how to do this," and she was not elderly by any means. And he's like, "Oh, okay." He goes, "Because I just Googled it, and there's over 1 billion results on how to like do this thing."
I can't make cookies. There's no recipes anywhere.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate you guys coming on. So,
no
again,
problem.
filling in for Matt, and I guess we'll see you all next time.
See you there.
Yep. Thank you.